everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this card and another card I'll show you at the end using Jingle Joy card making, stamps and thin cuts, and a selection of Tim Holtz oxide inks. So I'm going to start out with a panel of cardstock cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to do some ink blending. So I'm using wilted violet and blueprint sketch and shaded lilac. So I'm going to do a blend of the colors from the bottom to the top of the card, and then I'm going to fade out the top of the card into white. So I'm starting out with the wilted violet. I'm putting some color down and then adding some blueprint sketch and putting more color down, and then I'm going to put the lilac down and then fade that into white. And so right now I'm just putting color down in each section on the card and then blending it, just letting everything basically run out on that sponge and just letting it fade into white. So I'm going to work that into the card, and then I'll start working the colors into each other. So I'm going to bring the blueprint sketch into the lilac color and make sure I don't have too much ink on my sponge there, and working it up into the lilac, and then bringing a little bit of the lilac down into the blueprint sketch. And you just keep going back and forth like this. And I'm using the paper towel so that I don't get inky fingerprints in areas on the card front that I don't want. And this is kind of a messy job, so you will get ink everywhere, but it helps if you have a paper towel to get things cleaned up. And then I'm just kind of working the wilted violet into the blueprint sketch. And I decided that I wanted the wilted violet to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to go over it with some of the blueprint sketch to darken it a bit. And then I'll just work the colors together until I get a nice blend. Okay. All right, so I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to bring another piece of cardstock in. Oh, first I'm going to remove that removable adhesive from the back of my card. Okay, so now I'm going to bring my other piece of cardstock in and tack it down to my glass mat with a removable tape runner. And with this one, I'm going to use pine needles and mowed lawn. And I'm just going to do a really simple blend. First, I'm going to lay down pine needles on the entire piece of cardstock. We'll get that all down. And then I'm going to work some of the mowed lawn in on top of that. So that'll be more of a subtle blend of the two colors. I liked it. That's good. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in some of this pearlized watercolor paint, and this is the pearl color, and I'm going to do some splatters on that background of the pearl paint. It's not very easy to see it on screen here. It's just a very subtle look. Okay. All right. So now that's done, we'll get our glass mat and everything out of the way, and I'm going to bring my Versamat in, and we're going to do some stamping. Clear up my workspace here. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp the Santa image in candy apple ink. And then I'll be cutting that out using the coordinating die. But first I want to do a little, use some of these Spectrum Noir metallic markers on the Santa image. So I'm just using the black one to color in his belt, and then I'll use gold for his belt and his boots, and gold for the buckle. And it's just a very quick coloring job, and I'm just coloring over the red image that was part of the image that was stamped, and then coloring in that buckle. And I'm going to color this, one of the gifts in his bag, with the blue. Okay, so now I'll bring my big shot in, and I'm going to die cut Santa. So we'll run that through. Okay. And then I'm going to bring the first art panel in that I did, and I'm using these stitched fancy brackets, and I'm going to cut a window out of this panel. So right now I'm just kind of figuring out the placement and which die I want it to use. So I decided I wanted more of my art panel to show, so I'm going to use this smaller one. And then I decided I was going to do it horizontal rather than the other direction. So I'm just making sure it's straight before I run it through and cut. And then we'll send that on through. Okay, so now I have a cutout, and I'll use that other piece for another project. And then I'm going to run this panel through using cascading dots, and I'm placing it so the majority of the concentration of the dots are towards the top of the panel. I'm going to make it look like falling snow. So I'm running through that in my embossing folder. Okay, so now I've got my front panel done for my card, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment Jingle all the way, and I'm going to emboss it with white detail embossing powder. So I'm stamping it in Versamark. Got a little ink on that block there, so stamping the image down, and then I'll sprinkle some of the white detail embossing powder on it. Get that down, and then tapping off the excess, and powder stuck because of the oxide blending. It wasn't quite dry, so I had to knock off the extra powder using a dry paintbrush, and then I'll just hit it with my heat tool and melt all of that embossing powder. Okay, so now we're ready to start assembling the card, and it's going to be a portrait A2 size card. So this green panel that I inked, it was just a little bit too wide, so I'm just trimming off the edges before I put it down on the card. So that's what's going to show through that window. The green panel will show through. So I'm just figuring out where I'm going to place it on the front of my card. And then we'll get that taped down. And then I was going to put it down with just tape runner, and then I decided that I wanted to pop it with some thin foam tape. So I'm going to skip ahead in a second and ready to place that down on top of my card front. Okay. And then Santa, because I popped that panel, Santa needs to be popped as well. So I'm going to put him down with some thin foam tape. And add that to the card. And then the last step is to add some of these stickles. They are the diamond stickles, and I'm just adding some dots of stickles to the embossed cascading dots. I'm just randomly picking out different dots to put down, just to add a little bling. And there's my card. So I did another card after this one, exactly the same process. So I'll have some photos in just a second, and I used the reindeer instead. And here's that reindeer. And I used a red liquid pearl for his nose. And the Merry Christmas sentiment from Yuletide Borders with white glitter paper. So I appreciate you watching my video today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. And thanks for watching.